Hello, welcome. I'm Andreas, your tech-curious web designer. In this tutorial, we will build a login and sign-up page using HTML and CSS. As CSS framework, we will use Tailwind CSS, which uses utility classes and allows us to apply styles directly to HTML elements without writing custom CSS or maintaining an external style sheet. With this approach, we can create highly customizable designs on the fly. Meanwhile, in production, Tailwind CSS includes only the classes used in the project, keeping the file size always to a minimum. So if you like this content, give this video a thumbs up, subscribe to this channel and click the bell icon. This helps me to grow this channel and to reach more aspiring web developers. And if you want to support me, you can subscribe to my Patreon page and get access to exclusive content. Thank you so much. Okay, and now without further ado, let's dive in. A big thank you to all my supporters and a shout out to my newest supporter, Jason. So in this tutorial, we will create 3 static pages. This landing page, then this login page, and the sign up page. We will use Tailwind CSS to style these pages, and we will learn a lot of useful utility classes. Let's get to it. So here I'm inside Visual Studio Code as my code editor, and I created a folder called TikTok. But before I start coding, let me quickly show you the extensions I've installed in this editor. The color theme I'm using is called One Dark Pro. It gives some great highlights to my code elements. Then I have HTML CSS support, which checks the code for syntax errors. As well as Tailwind CSS IntelliSense, which provides suggestions for the available Tailwind CSS classes. Then a very useful little extension is Auto Rename Tag. When you rename a tag, it will automatically change the name of the closing tag as well. And I'm using Live Server, which automatically updates the website whenever I save changes to my file. Okay, these are 5 very useful extensions I would recommend to use. Okay, and now let's get started. First, I will create a templates folder where I save my HTML files. And the first file is index.html. Here I write HTML column 5. This gives me the boilerplate code for HTML version 5. Then I change the page title to TikTok. And I also add a h1 tag, which is the main heading of the page, with Hello World. Okay, let's save this file. So this is TikTok's landing page we're going to build. But to see our page here, I click on the Go Live button at the bottom here. This is the Live Server extension. And it opens the page with Hello World. And whenever we are saving the file, we will see the changes automatically. Okay, as next, let's add Tailwind CSS to this page. So we're going to tailwindcss.com. Here you will find all the documentation you will need. And to install it to our project, I click the Get Started button here. And here we can see different ways to install Tailwind CSS. But for now, the easiest way to use Tailwind during development is to include the Tailwind CDN, which gives us online access to the entire library. Later, when we move to production, we will see how we can integrate Tailwind into our project to generate a minified style sheet for better performance. So I click here on Play CDN and copy this line with the script tag. And add it here to the head. And now we can use the utility classes Tailwind provides. For this we add the class attribute to the HTML element and then add the classes. And text for XL changes, for example, the font size. We can also see it changes the font family. But this is because Tailwind resets all the default styles of the browser, so that the Tailwind styles behave in the same way in every browser. And with font bold, we make it bold. For elements which we use often, like the h1 tag, we can also apply these classes to a custom class we define. For this we can create a style sheet in the head, and important here is to use the type text/Tailwind CSS. This translates Tailwind CSS classes to regular CSS the browser understands. Here we create the h1 tag, then we add the @apply directive and list the Tailwind CSS classes in here, and remove them from the element. Okay, and to demonstrate this, I just apply a red color. There we go. As you can see, it's very easy to style an element just with these classes. Tailwind CSS has thousands of predefined classes, but should you need a custom style which doesn't exist, you can modify a class with square brackets. So for example, if 4XL is too big, we can also write it as 33 pixels in square brackets, and it makes the title a bit smaller. Or we can also use rem, which is the size relative to the root of the element, and in this case 2 rem are 32 pixels. Alright, let's get rid of the red color. And we have our h1 styling. Okay, let's right now log in to TikTok. Alright, and now let's get started with the index page. Our page here has a basic structure with header, main and footer. So here we have a header. This is where I display the logo. Then we have the main element. This is our main content block here. Here we add our h1 element. And then we have the footer, which stays at the bottom of the page. Alright, now let's start with the header. Inside the header, I add a div element, which is the most basic building block in HTML. Inside we have the A tag. The A tag is used for links, so for example our logo will link back to the homepage. And inside we add the image tag, where we add the path to the image using the source attribute. And to get the TikTok logo, you can go to my GitHub repository at github.com/andyjudd/tiktok-clone and download the image. Go to the images folder. And here you can find the TikTok logo and the favicon, which is the little icon you can see in the browser tab. So let's download both of those files. So I click on download raw file. So once downloaded, I create here a new folder called static. In this folder we will have static files like images, but also CSS or JavaScript files. Then I create a new folder with images. And I add now those two images in this folder. And in my image tag here, I want to link now to this tiktok.png file. So with two dots, I'm going outside my templates folder and inside the static folder with /static/images and choose tiktok.png. Okay, let's have a look. And we see the logo on the page. Nice. Now let's style this header element here. I want this element always to stick on top of the page. I can do this with the sticky class and top 0, which means 0 pixels from the top. And Z10 stands for Z index of 10 and describes which elements stack over each other. So Z10 stacks over Z0 elements. Alright. PG yellow 300 gives the element a background color with a yellow shade and the intensity of 300. The color scale goes from 50 to 900. The higher the number, the darker the color. And Tailwind CSS offers a great selection of different color shades. I use the yellow background here just to show the container, so we have it here at the very top, and the logo sits on the left and fills out the whole height. Then I give this box the height of 60 pixels. Then with flex items-center, we position this element in the vertical center inside this box. And with px 2.5, I apply a padding left and right of this element of 2.5 units. 1 unit is 4 pixels, so 2.5 represents 10 pixels, which is this gap here. And finally, I set the background color to white. Alright, this is the header. Next, let's add the favicon icon to the browser tab. So we add this to our heads. With this link element here, rel specifies the relationship between the element and the document, and shortcut icon tells the browser that this image is the favicon and to be displayed in the browser tab. Then the type is image/xicon, which tells the browser that we're using an image in the icon format. And in href, we add the path to the image. And we can see it appeared now in the browser tab. Great. So let's style now our main element. I add here first a div element. Move the h1 tag inside. And add again the yellow background color to the element. With max width XS, XS stands for very small, we define the width of this container. With mx, which is margin left and right, set to auto, we apply left and right the same margin, which will center the element in the middle. Then we align center the text. And pt16 applies a top padding to the element. And then apply also bottom padding to the header. Okay, let's get rid of the yellow background. And as next, we add a paragraph and the login buttons. I add the text inside the p tag, which stands for paragraph and is used when displaying text on the page. Then I change the text color to a light gray, but we can also apply a custom color to it by using, for example, a hexadecimal number. I make the text small. Leading is the line height, which defines the space between lines. And a padding bottom of 6. Okay, next we style the buttons. I add the block class to the a tag, which makes it a block element and fills out the whole width of the parent container. I apply a padding all around this element. Rounded large corners. Then I apply a border. This gives it a 1 pixel border by default and give it a neutral light gray color. Hover colon applies a styling only when hovering this element, and I apply here a gray color to the background. Then I make sure the text is always centered. Font is medium. And the text is small. Alright, and finally I remove the yellow background color. Now let's add a gap if we have more buttons under each other. And we can do this with a flex element. Position the elements in a column and apply the gap. Alright, next let's add the icon and the text for each button. For the icon, I add here a div container. And also a p tag for the text. And the icon we can copy now from my GitHub repository. Here I have an icons_svg file. This is a collection of all the icons we will use in this tutorial in vector format. And here I grab the first SVG icon for email and username. And add it in here. Next, let's scale it down. For this I add classes to the parent container. I give it a width and a height of 5. With position absolute, I take the element out of the normal flow structure and can position it relative to the parent container. For this we need to add the relative class to the parent. And we can position it now from the left by 4, or 16 pixels. Alright, we completed now our first button. Let's make 2 more copies. So here we have Facebook. And here we have Google. Then let's grab the icons. And there we go. We got the login buttons now for email, Facebook and Google. Now the main section is done. Now let's add the footer. So we have a terms and condition paragraph here, the sign up link and the black bar at the bottom. So this is the paragraph. Let's style it now. I give it a max width of small, equal margin left and right, a padding top of 8, a padding bottom of 20, text center, text color of neutral 400, and very small text. Now let's create the links in this paragraph. The terms of service link. I apply text black and hover underline. And the same for the privacy policy. Okay. Then we have the sign up text with the link. With text center, padding 5. And then we can add the line here with border top and light gray color. Here we see the line. Then let's also add the link. I add the text color rose 500. Medium font, and hover underline. Alright. And then at the very bottom we have the copyright footer. With a black background. The text is neutral 400. A container height of 21. Position the element in the center vertically with flex item center. Then to position it to the right side, I add justify end. Then I add a left and right padding. And have the text small. Alright, and this is our footer. And now to have it always pushed to the bottom of the page, even when the content isn't filling out the space, we use a grid layout. I will just quickly collapse here my 3 main containers and put them inside a div wrapper. Like that. Then I give this wrapper a minimum height of 100% of the dynamic viewport height, which calculates the correct height on all devices and browsers. Then with the grid layout, the elements get positioned by default in equal sized rows. but we can position them also with a custom definition. So here the first element with auto takes as much space as its content needs. Then 1fr for the second element, which stands for 1 fraction, takes up all the remaining space. And the third element with auto takes again only the space it needs. In this way, the footer is always sticking to the bottom of the main element and is not visible if the main content fills up the whole page.
Oh, it's beautiful.
Alright, so as very last styling on this page, I want to make all the text lighter. For this I apply font light to the body tag. This just makes all the text slightly crisper. Alright, with this we have finished the styling of the index page. As next we create the login page. For this I create a new file. In my templates folder, login.html. Now in my index.html file, I'm linking to this new file now. So in my main section, here we have the email and username login button, and I add the login.html to the href here. Okay. Next, I copy all the code from this file and paste it over. And then I remove the content of the main section. And add login as the title. Okay, let's check it out. I click here on this link here. And here we have the new login page. I move the header inside a div. Apply a max width to this element. Center it on the page. And add a top padding. Then I center the title in the middle and give it a padding bottom of 4. Alright. And now we create a form element with the input fields. Here I have a form element inside a div wrapper and added the label for the input field. With font medium, text small, and a margin bottom of 1. I also give the wrapper a margin on the bottom. And now we create the input field. So input field has a name. In this case, we have email as the name. We have a type, which defines the kind of data the input field accepts. And we're using here text because this input field can be username or email. Then we have a placeholder. In this case, we see it's email or username. We add a class attribute for the styling. And finally, the value attribute, which sets the initial value when the page loads. In this case, it's empty. Okay, let's style this input field. I give it a custom class, because we will use this field many times again. Input-field, and I define it now in my style sheet. We have a very light gray background. It spans the full width of the container. Padding left and right of 3. Padding top and bottom of 2.5. Then we have a 1 pixel border in a gray color with small rounded corners. We can apply a different color for the placeholder text. And if we don't want the blue default browser outline when the element is in focus, we can apply focus :outline -hidden. Alright. Then I copy this input field and add an input field for the password. Type is password. This hides the password when the user types it in. And for placeholder, I also add password. Now let's add some space between them. So I wrap them in a div container. Lay them out as flexed columns, add a gap between them, and apply a margin bottom of 2. Okay. And now let's add this icon to the password field. So for this, I wrap this password input field in a container. I add relative to the parent container, because we will position the icon absolute, make it full width, and add this icon now inside an A tag. And we get this icon again from my GitHub repository. Alright, this is the icon. Let's first size it down. But this did not work yet, and that's because we're applying it to the A tag, which is an inline element and not a block element, and does not have width or height properties. But we can fix that by adding the block class to the A tag, or for example the grid class to the parent container. And now with the grid class, the children behave like block elements. Then we position the A tag with the icon absolute. It is now by default in the top left corner inside the container. And now to position it, I add top of 3, right of 3.5. We color it in with fill neutral 500. And I set the cursor symbol to a pointer. Okay, next we add the forgot password link. I make it a block element with text small, medium font size, a gray text color, hover underline, and black, with margin bottom of 6. Then we have the login button. Here I create a custom class because we will use this button more often. A light gray background, full width. As we can see, the text is already centered now. This is the default behavior on a button element. Then we have the padding left and right, top and bottom. Small rounded corners. Font medium. Gray text color. And with select none, we can prevent users to select the text, which makes sense for a button. Alright. And all what is missing now on this page is the Go Back button. So here below the form and the div container, I create another div with the anchor tag, then another container for the back arrow icon, and then we have the Go Back text. Okay, let's grab the icon for the back arrow. We set the width and the height. Then we position them next to each other with the flex and item center class. And with flex justify center, I align the element in the center. And I make the font medium and small. Alright, and with this we have finished this page. As last, I just get rid of the terms and condition paragraph down here. And there we go. Next, let's create a sign up page. So I create a new file, signup.html. In the login page, I link to the sign up page now. Then we copy the code and paste it in the sign up page. Here we say now sign up. So let's check it out. I click here on the sign up link and we are on the sign up page. This is TikTok sign up page we are building now. And first let's get the terms and condition paragraph back in. So I'm going to my index.html file. Here in the footer, we can also link here to the sign up page. And we copy this first element here. Now let's build this page. So this page includes a month, day and year picker to select the birthday and also an input field for email validation code. I first add the label for the birthday picker. Then I add a container for those 3 boxes. Then first we have an element for the month, for the day, and for the year. Okay, let's style it now. Neutral 100 background color, padding left and right of 3, height of 11, center it vertically with flex, rounded corners, and cursor pointer. Okay, then I copy all those classes and add them to the other elements as well. Okay. Next, we lay them out next to each other, and to have equal size boxes, I'm using the grid layout. So here I'm using flex columns, and each box has the equal space of 1 fraction. Then I also add a gap in between, and margin bottom of 1. Then I apply a gray color to the text, and also select none. So I copy the style now, and add it to the other elements. Alright. And now we add the drop-down arrow. I grab the icon from the repository, give it a height and width of 4, and then I position the arrow to the other side of the container. And on a flex element, this can be done with justify between. Alright, and now we add the arrow and this class to the other elements as well. Okay, and now we have the 3 select boxes. In the next video, we will add the drop-downs with Alpine.js. Then underneath we have another paragraph. Neutral 400 color, text small, and a margin bottom of 6. Then I change the label here to email. And placeholder text to email address. Then we created already the input field for password. Then we add here the input field for the validation code. Name is code, type is text. We add a placeholder, and class is the input field. Then we have the send code button next to it. I also style it with the input field class. Then I position them next to each other with flex. Now I want to give the input field exactly 2/3 of the space and the button 1/3. For this I define the width of the elements. So we set full width on the input field class, but with the exclamation mark we can override this setting. This stands for important, and we can give it 2/3 of the width. And the button we give 1/3. Then I want to have the text centered, medium font, neutral 400 color, select none, and then I also add the cursor not allowed class, which changes the cursor to a not allowed symbol and indicates that the element is disabled. And as last, I fix the rounded corners, so I want to have rounded corners on the outside but not on the inside. So first I get rid of rounded corners completely. This is again overwriting the styles we have on the input field class. And then I apply the rounded corner only on the right side of the send code button. And the same we do for the input field. But here rounded only on the left side. Okay, as we can see here, we have rounded corners outside but not inside. Okay. Next we add the checkbox. So we get rid of the forgot password link. I add the input type with checkbox. If width and height are the same, we can also write size. Margin top of 0.5. Then when it's checked, a rose 500 background color. There we go. With a cursor pointer. Then we have the text. Very small text. Neutral 600 color. And line height of 4. Okay, now position them next to each other. I use here again the grid layout and set the checkbox space to auto and the paragraph to fill out the remaining space. Gap 2. A margin bottom of 6. And the button says sign up. Alright, and with that we have finished the sign up page as it is on TikTok. But as last thing, I will include on this page also username input field, which on TikTok is on its own page. So I will add another input field for the username. So just above the checkbox here, I add the label create username and add the input field for the username with type text. Give the element a bottom margin of 4. And finally, in the footer, we link to the login page. So we change the text, the link to index.html, and the text to login. Let's also link the go back button to the index page. There we go. And the same on the login page. So back to the login. And link it back to index.html. Alright, and with that we created now a static index, login, and sign up page with the input fields. Nice. Okay, in the next video we will make these pages interactive with Alpine.js. For example, we will add the drop-down menus, making the password visible and hidden by clicking on this icon here, and make the buttons active when the user fills out the input fields. I hope to see you there. Until then, happy coding my friends, and bye bye for now.